Okay, hey guys, welcome back. All right, today we're going to start our discussion of vertebrates. We had finished our 8 phylums of invertebrates. We had talked about the porifera, which is the sponges, Cnidaria, which is your corals and your jellyfish and your sea anemones. We talked about the 3 phylums of worms, which were your platyhelminthes, your flatworms, your nematodes, which is your roundworms, and then your annelids, which is your segmented worms. We talked about arthropods and how they are the largest group of animals in the animal kingdom, that 80% of animals are considered to be arthropods. We talked about your mollusks, which is the second largest group of animals, and how very diverse they are. And we talked about your echinoderms, all right, which is the phylum that contains your starfish and your clams and your squid and octopus, all right? Now today what we're going to start doing is we're going to be wrapping up our animal kingdom study by looking at vertebrates, all right? Well, what does it mean to be a vertebrate? Well, first of all vertebrates belong to phylum Chordata. Okay, so whereas we had 8 phylums of invertebrates, all right, there's only one phylum really of vertebrates, and we're going to be specifying those into their classes when we're looking at the different vertebrates. So if you remember the kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species, all right, we have kingdom Animalia, now we have phylum Chordata, and then we're going to have 5 different classes, actually 7 different classes of chordates, all right, that are classified in phylum Chordata. Well, what does it mean to be a chordate? Okay, well, chordates have 4 distinct characteristics. Okay, you have your notochord, which is long, flexible supporting rod that runs through at least part of the body. Okay, this is usually along the dorsal surface, which means along the back. Okay, and it usually lies beneath the nerve cord. Well, if you think about it, all right, your nerve cord lies within your spine, all right? So all chordates have this notochord, including us. And this is what becomes the backbone, or your spinal column for us in our case, all right, for chordates. They have what is called, where is it? There we go, a hollow dorsal nerve cord, which becomes the brain and the spinal cord for chordates. They have what are called pharyngeal pouches, all right, which is in the throat area, and these become the gill slits for some, specifically your fish species. And they also have a tail, all right? Now, the thing about these 4 distinct characteristics, all right, is that these 4 characteristics occur during the embryo stage of life, all right? And I know we've talked about this before when we were looking at genetics, how a human embryo and a fish embryo and a reptile embryo look very similar, okay? And that's because all chordates have these 4 specific characteristics as an embryo. And we're going to look at that as how they all look very similar. All right, and some of these characteristics are present during the adult life for a few chordates. Okay, as a human, believe it or not, which you were a mammal, all right, you did have a tail at one point in time, all right, during your embryo stage of life. And of course, your tailbone is evident of the fact that that tail was there during your embryo stages. All right, and here is what an embryo looks like for chordates. All right, again, they all have 4 structures present at some point in time in their development. You can see the pharyngeal pouches or the gill slits. All right, it's showing you there the nerve cord, the notochord, and then the postanal tail. All right, animals that are included in phylum Chordata include what are called tunicates and lancets, fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals. And remember, as humans, we are mammals. All right, so here you can see again the similarities in what the embryos look like. Here you can see a fish embryo, a reptile embryo, a bird embryo, and a human embryo. And you can see that they all look very much the same. All right, so that's just proof of common ancestry there. All right, now Most chordates are in fact vertebrates. All right. There are two types of chordates that are not vertebrates. All right, that they are invertebrates, but they have those four distinct characteristics in their embryo stage, and these are called tunicates and lancelets. Well, what are tunicates and lancelets? Well, as it shows you there, although definitely not true fish, lancelets are considered fairly close to the vertebrate ancestral lineage of fish. They have an almost transparent body, they don't have eyes, they don't have a brain, they have a permanent notochord extending into the head, and a dorsal hollow nerve cord, gill slits, and segmented muscle blocks. All right? A tunicate, okay, is a sessile marine invertebrate animal. They're filter feeders. Okay, they move from, they remove plankton from the water as they pass through the gill slits. They're commonly called sea squirts, and they're a group of marine animals that spend most of their lives attached to docks, rocks, or the underside of boats. To most people, they look like small colored blobs. All right, well here you can see that is a picture of a lancelet. All right, and you can see it is a fish-like organism. All right, but remember they have no brains, they have no eyes. All right, and then here is a picture of a tunicate. Okay, again, they look like a very simplistic animal. All right, and they are pretty closely related to the sponges and the cnidarians, but they're not sponges and cnidarians because they are more detailed than sponges and cnidarians. All right, and if you remember, sponges, it's just two cell layers. Cnidarians, they have those two cell layers that actually form tissues. Here, tunicates, you can see, are much more complicated in their structure, but they resemble sponges and cnidarians. Okay, now, vertebrates, of course, are the animals with a backbone. The tunicates and the lancelets are the only two invertebrate chordates. All other vertebrates, or all other chordates then, are vertebrates, and that means that they are animals with a backbone. All right, they're the most complicated animals in the animal kingdom. And these are the animals that you would commonly think of animals. If I would ask you to name for me animals, I guarantee you most of you guys would give me like dogs and cats and fish and birds and squirrels and bunnies and cows and deer and humans, and these are all vertebrates. Okay? All vertebrates have an endoskeleton, which is the internal skeleton, and the thing with vertebrates is that their endoskeletons are made of bones and or cartilage. And I say and or cartilage because there's two types of fish that only have endoskeletons made of cartilage. It never hardens into bone. But the majority of vertebrates, their endoskeleton is made of both bones and cartilage. And cartilage is a very soft tissue that you can find if you press on your nose. All right, it's a connective tissue. Your nose is completely made of cartilage. Your ears are completely made of cartilage. At the ends of bones where the joints form, the bones are padded with cartilage. So that way when they meet at the joints, like it's not a bone-on-bone movement. All right, the cartilage serves as a padding there. All right, the endoskeleton gives support. It protects the internal organs, okay, since these are the most complicated animals in the animal kingdom, all vertebrates have complete organ systems. The endoskeleton allows for movement, okay. You have ligaments and tendons and other muscle types that attach to the bones to allow movement for all types of vertebrates. All right, and the bones, the endoskeletons will grow with an organism. Mollusks, I think I forgot to tell you in that last video, they also shed their shells on a regular basis and grow a new one because exoskeletons do not grow with these organisms. We said that, you know, arthropods will often molt. They shed their shell, and grow a new one as their bodies grow, because their exoskeletons, their shells, do not grow with them. The endoskeletons, however, of vertebrates do grow with the organism. Okay, they grow by adding cells and getting bigger. All right, now, there's two sections to the endoskeletons of all vertebrates, for the most part. okay? Maybe fish don't have these two sections, all right? But for the most part, the rest of the vertebrate endoskeletons have these two sections to them. And the first section is called the axial skeleton, which is composed of the skull, the rib cage, and the vertebral column. And then the second section is called the appendicular skeleton, which is your limb bones, the arms and legs, the pectoral girdle, which is what attaches the arms to the axial skeleton, and then the pelvic girdle, which is what attaches the legs to the axial skeleton. The axial is the skull, the rib cage, and the vertebral column. Well, if you think about it, if you think about your skeleton, the endoskeleton, like the pectoral girdle would be like your shoulder blades. Okay, your collarbone. That is what attaches your arms to the vertebral column. And then if you think about your pelvis, which is where your legs are attached, all right, that would be the pelvic girdle. Okay, now all vertebrates, like I said, with the exception of maybe fish, have these two sections to their endoskeleton. All right, so in our next video, we're going to start looking at the 5 different types of vertebrates that are classified in the animal kingdom. And again, these are animals that you would recognize as being animals. They're the fish, the amphibians, the reptiles, the birds, and the mammals. All right? So that's it for today, and have a great day.